Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, publisher of Aspire Magazine, the premier inspirational magazine for women since 2006. I'm also the best-selling publisher behind the boutique.
Is there something in your past that you believe keeps you from living the life you want? Do you feel unworthy, unloved, unable to succeed? Well, joining me today is a very special guest, Shann Vander Leek, creator of Sacred Heart Teachings. And we'll be discussing how you can forgive yourself and heal what hurts. You'll learn how to listen to the voice that comes from within and discover how to get to the root of what is weighing you down so that you can let go of what no longer serves you and care for your precious heart. So allow me to introduce Shann. Shann is a transformation goddess, lifelong media expert, published author, celebrated podcaster, and voiceover talent. Shann is the author of Life on Your Terms and co-author of 6 more best-selling books for women. Shann produces the Goddess Talk Sessions, the Divine Feminine Spotlight interview series, and co-hosts the award-winning Anxiety Slayer podcast with over 2.5 million listens. She loves to teach women to walk in beauty with the strength, courage, and pleasure of reclaiming their feminine sovereignty. Welcome, beautiful.
It's great to be here with you today, Linda, and I am really thrilled that we get to spend some time together talking about healing our precious hearts.
Well, I'll tell you, Shann, you and I have been playing, working, collaborating, and you've been a big support in my own life. And so to have you here today, to be able to share these gifts, your wisdom, with my audience is such a sacred honor and privilege for me. So I am excited to get our conversation going because it's such a powerful topic, because forgiveness and pain and healing is something that we all experience. So it's a conversation that everyone can tap into, learn from. So I've heard you say, in many of our personal conversations and all the beautiful writing that you do and share with the world, you've used the phrase that the time for sacred personal healing is now. So why don't we start there and share what you mean by that?
I think that all too often we get wrapped up in our responsibilities and to-do lists in our lives and often kick ourselves to the curb and forget about the healing work or the loving work that we can do for ourselves to evolve and heal and grow. And what I've seen in my business, in my personal life and in my business with the women that I work with is we get to a point where our well is dry and we don't always know why. And it usually comes down to giving so much of ourselves away without remembering how important it is to receive and to care for ourselves in a very loving and beautiful way.
I love what you said about being and doing because, as you know from our personal conversations, it's something I personally struggled with. You and I have been in each other's lives for over 6 years now. And there's been times that you've called me out on that going, Linda, you can't serve if you don't nourish yourself. And that means body, mind, spirit, all aspects. So I love that you've been my sacred kick in the ass a few times and called me out. And as my awareness around this topic grew, I noticed so many other women struggling with just that. And so let's talk about that difference between being and doing and how it affects our energy and our ability to serve and live life to our fullest.
Well, that's a great question and a great conversation starter. when we get in our doing mode or our masculine mode, we are really on fire making things happen, whether it's running a household, running a business, taking care of errands, responsibilities, creating new projects and offerings, and whatever all of that looks like. You're in that flow of action and doing. And then on the other side of that is the more feminine piece, the spaciousness, the allowing, the flow, the being in the moment, giving yourself that time to perhaps take a walk on your lunch hour, or to head to the water like I like to go to Lake Michigan, or to just be quiet for a bit and journal, or to really savor a cup of tea. Those kinds of things really need to be in balance with all of that action so that you can feel whole and complete and nourished. Because if not, you're just go, 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 give, give, give. And then you find yourself sometimes irritated. I know that if I'm not kind to myself, I can be naughty. I can be not a very nice woman. So, and my husband will tell you too, he loves it when I take care of myself and allow for that spaciousness. I love talking about the importance of being and spaciousness. And I've learned this over the last 10 years. It's definitely a practice and a work in progress, because I love doing. But now I love being as much as doing. So it's a nice balance.
And that is really what it's all about, Shann, because is balance. And that's what I discovered, because many years ago when I opened my first business in 92, and I know you've gone through this experience, I didn't know what I didn't know. Even this language that we're using in today's conversation, I didn't have that awareness. So back then, it was nose to the grindstone to build a business. And yes, I did it successfully and won lots of awards, but it cost me my health. It cost me my peace of mind, because what was missing from my life was exactly what you just described: the ability to be, the ability to nourish myself. And so flash forward, when I started Aspire in 2006, I consciously knew I wanted it to be different. I wanted to lead differently, but I was still healing those aspects of myself until I could come into balance with the two of them. And it was women like you coming into my life around that time when I realized that I wanted sacred role models who were all on this same journey together, women who were learning to balance. And I was blessed to meet you and so many others. Now, my success comes from that ability to balance. In the women that you serve, Shann, do you find that this is one of the greatest aspects that they have to work on, is this ability to balance the masculine and feminine being and doing energies?
Without a doubt, it is the number one thing that comes up over and over and over, in conjunction with learning how to receive. Because in that being place that we're talking about, we're giving ourselves a gift, and we need to be able to receive that gift without excuses. We need to remember that we deserve the downtime that we need, that we deserve the pampering that our bodies, minds, and souls need. And so often women will come to me, they're just so maxed out. They're generally very successful. They, very much like you, award-winning, successful, all of these wonderful things going on. But what happens is, because they haven't learned yet how to truly care for their mind, body, and soul, they might, for instance, these are the people who on a vacation once a year might get a massage. They know it's okay because they're on vacation, they have time, or, that kind of thing.
Yes.
So what happens is they have to learn how to receive and to understand that they are worthy of receiving, that they don't always have to be in that place of producing and giving and proving and getting validation and all of the things that come with that. And it takes practice and it takes time, because there's parts, what I've found is women feel guilty. If I do that, I'm taking away from something else. If I give that to myself, then I'm not spending that time with my family, or I'm not working on this project for a client, or I'm not serving my boss 24/7, or whatever those excuses are. But that's exactly what they are. They're excuses. These women are the ones who work so hard that the only way they stop is with a migraine headache or with a health issue, something that knocks them on their butts and forces them to be in bed and to be still.
Well, I'm raising my hand on that one, Shann, because that's exactly what happened back in that first business I started in 92 is I pushed myself into the ground. And I want to give an example. So for all women who are on this call, who happen to also be entrepreneurs, there's a whisper going on in your soul, and I know Shann and I are going to be talking about it. You already know if everything we're saying is resonating with you right now, I think it's your soul talking, saying, where are you not being gentle with yourself? And I'm gonna use it this one moment in my life that I believe now, if I had listened, I would have saved myself a lot. But I was that nose to the grindstone entrepreneur, and it was probably about 1996. That business was about 4 or 5 years old. Did a magazine article that said, Superwoman's cape must have been behind the door. And that publication sent a reporter who spent the day with me, and that's what this story was about. And basically, it was about everything I was doing in the community, for my business, all this. Now, when that article came out, you would have thought that I would have been like, yay, recognition. My employees brought it to me that day, and I just remember smiling, a false smile. Yeah, it's a wonderful article, but I couldn't wait to get back in my office, Shann. I couldn't wait. And I locked the door, and I read it. And I remember sobbing, and I'm going to cry, the deepest sobs that I had cried in a long time. And at first I was like, why are you crying, Linda? This is what business owners wait for, to be recognized in all this. And the reason I was crying, Shann, was because I realized that I had created a superwoman persona that was killing me, physically killing me. And now I felt that with this article that came out, how was I ever going to take off that superwoman cape? And I felt like I had boxed myself into this persona that I couldn't possibly continue in. And it was a day of reckoning for me. But here's the message for the women on the call tuning into today's show. I wish to God I had listened to what my soul was telling me that day, but I didn't. Instead of saying I can no longer do this and releasing some of the things off my plate, I, of course, being Superwoman, forged ahead and did not listen to the signs my body was giving me, and ended up having a mini stroke. So talk about a cosmic 2x4, and it's exactly what you were just sharing, Shann, about we push ourselves till the physical stops us, which is the migraine headaches, other illnesses. And it is so true, and it's not just my experience. You've experienced it. Other women on this path of creating a business and serving with our hearts have experienced it. So here's a question for you, Shann. How can our listeners shift these old patterns of thinking before the cosmic 2x4 comes for them?
Practice. It takes really being in tune with your body, listening to your body. So many of us don't even really know what it's like to be in our bodies because we kind of push them aside on this laundry list of things that we have to do. So if we have a backache, or if we have a headache, or if we medicate, or we say, oh, well, that it is what it is. It's sore, but I'm going to keep moving forward, or whatever those things are. And my invitation is to listen to your body. And when you feel a headache coming on, have you had a glass of water yet today? Ask yourself that question. When's the last time you allowed for some fresh air? Usually we're dehydrated and we don't even know it. And to take that moment to have a glass of water makes all the difference. To say, oh, wow, my body is feeling exhausted. What can I do to take care of my body, whether it's a hot bath or a shower or body work or resting? Now, for example, if I'm feeling super exhausted, and I have been this last month, there's been a lot going on in my life, and I've been juggling more than I normally do. But if I start to feel really run down, I will go lay down. And I will give myself that time, even if it's 15 minutes or a half an hour. And I realize that because I'm an entrepreneur working out of a home office, I have the luxury of doing that. But even if I were in an office environment, and I actually did this at the end of my television career, I would go to a lake that was nearby the office on my lunch hour and just either sit in my car and have something to eat or go sit on the, depending on the weather, sit on the beach and just relax and breathe and come back. And so the answer to your question is to really be mindful, to be in your body, not to kick your body to the curb, but to really embrace it and say, okay, I thank you, this beautiful body. Think about what it does for us and how it gets us to where we need to go and all of the things that we can do, and that it's just really a miracle. We need to treat ourselves that way.
That's a beautiful thought. I want everyone to sit with that for a moment while we go to commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to talk to Shann Vander Leek of transformationgoddess.com on a deeper level in this conversation. So we'll be back shortly.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Ladies, your story has the power to transform lives. 4-time best-selling boutique publishing company, Inspired Living Publishing, is dedicated to sharing women's stories of hope, love, and transformation with the intention to inspire and empower their readers to believe in the power of possibility. Share your story in an upcoming print or Kindle project. Visit inspiredlivingpublishing.com today.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
This is OTR FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Hey, welcome back to Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy and my special guest, Shann Vander Leek of transformationgoddess.com. Right before the break, we were talking about, I had asked Shann how we, all of us, can shift old patterns of thinking. And she had shared that, one, it takes practice, which, believe me, I know about. And she gave a great tip about really being mindful and listening to your body. So let's continue that conversation. Shann, what is the vision that drives you to support women in looking in the mirror and facing their past? Was it something in your own journey that led to the work you're doing now?
It really was. And we were talking so much earlier about the balance between the masculine and the feminine, and we were talking about how we can better care for ourselves and how important compassionate self-care is. And for a long, long time, I had a very type A leader, kick-ass personality, which is still a part of who I am today, and I love that part of me. But it was to the detriment of the divine feminine, and I had no idea how to care for my body, how to include spaciousness in my life, how to put myself at the front of the line. And so that has really inspired me. And then today, as we're talking about the healing power of forgiveness, that was a big piece as well, because I realized that for a long, long time, I was overcompensating and looking for validation for the work that I was doing. I thought that if I was the very best at what I did, the most professional, the top of the pyramid, that I was untouchable. And that came from this place of never really feeling like I measured up in certain ways because of different choices that I had made in my past, because of some of the portions of my upbringing, because there was some shame and guilt. And, it was one of those commentaries that I know that I can share, and I know I'm not alone in this, where I had that loop of information in my head that which is my ego or inner critic, that was really beating me up on a big level. And so for a long time, I was sort of running from that and trying to prove myself to this voice in my head that I now know wasn't even mine. Oftentimes, our inner critics are voices from parents or teachers or authority figures who may have handled things inappropriately, or may have said something that was very hurtful, or may have just really triggered something in us that makes us feel like we're not as good as we could be, or we're not perfect. The perfection piece was big for me. The wanting everything to be just so, which also leads into that control piece. So all of that stuff was swirling around, and I realized that I had my work cut out for me, that it was time to start untangling that and to get real about forgiving myself, forgiving others, frankly, forgiving everyone for all of those pieces that were haunting me, so that I could clear the way to receive and clear the way to really honor this incredible woman that I've become without tearing her down. And to do so, you have to start paying attention to your inner talk, that the voices in your head. You must start there. And as soon as you can do so, you'll start saying, wow, that's interesting. Where's that coming from? Or who's that speaking? Or as a matter of fact, years ago, you were so very helpful. And there was a day we were talking and I was being really hard on myself. Didn't even know I was, very subconscious. And you asked me if I would talk to or treat my daughter that way. You stopped me in my tracks. And I realized that dialogue had just, it was like somebody's pressed the play button, and it was time to beat myself up. And you stopped me, and I thought, oh, you're right. No, I would never talk to anybody I love that way.
And Shann, it's a question that I shared with you because it's a question I had to use myself over my daughter's 31 now. When I started to transform my life, that question helped me stop the internal negative chatter when I began the journey of wanting to heal those layers of myself, and self-forgiveness was a big part. So I'm glad that by sharing it with you, it gave you that moment of pause to say, wait a minute, if I want to do this to my daughter or granddaughter or someone else I love, why am I doing it to myself? I'm as sacred as they are. And that moment of pause is when I think healing can begin.
Without a doubt, that it opened everything up. And that for me is such a poignant moment, because I go back to it often. If I catch myself, and I don't do it very often anymore, but if I catch myself in that right mood or that place where that old pattern wants to show itself, I can really squash it pretty quickly by remembering that, and remembering that sometimes we have a bad day, sometimes we screw up, sometimes we say things that we wish we could take back, that we're human, that in this humanness, these things are going to come up, and how can we better care for ourselves and others, and how, what choices can we make for the future versus holding ourselves hostage to our past.
And I'm so glad that you were vulnerable enough to say that it still happens. We still, no matter how long we've been on this path, we still have moments where we forget our truth. and we step into old patterns. And it could just be a moment. And then we know, like myself, Shann, it happens less and less. But I think it's so important for us to share that no matter how long you've been on this path, and I've been on it for 25 years, and you've been on it for quite a while, that we are still human and we forget our truth and we fall into old patterns, and it's okay, right? Because I think so many who have been on the personal spiritual development path for a long time, I think sometimes we can be harder on ourselves, like, oh, I should have known better to let the internal chatter take over. Or I should have known better to. Well, the truth is, you're no different than anyone else. We all have moments that we forget. What matters is that we come back into awareness and say, oh, I see why that happened. And you just bring yourself back to your truth. And the reason I wanted to share that is I know and I'm curious if you have too, I've had a lot of clients, a lot of friends say, well, Linda, when I can get to where you're at, and I'm like, well, where the hell's that? I'm on the same path. Yeah, I'm like, where's there? I'm like, I'm on the same path you are, honey. I mess up. I have moments of weakness. I forget my truth. I fall back to old patterns. Because I want everyone to know the path is one path, right? Mm-hmm. We're all walking it. Some may be further ahead, but sometimes, and I've done this, and Shann, I'd love to see if this resonates with you. Sometimes we turn and take a right fork or a left fork and start going off in a different direction. And we have to come back to our truth and get back on the path. But the journey is for all of us. Does that make sense? And I wanted women to really understand that. Don't look at someone else who has been on the path for a long time and put them above you or on a pedestal, whether it's a guru, whether it's an author, it doesn't matter who it is. Everyone is on this journey, and we're all equal on this journey. We all have moments of weakness. So don't do comparison, because I did that, and I'm bringing that up because I did that for a long time, Shann. Did you?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, and I want women to be more gentle with themselves than that.
Well, and we deserve to be more gentle with ourselves than that, because one of the things that would get me snagged is depending on how you're raised, and if you're raised in a religious environment, and I was raised Catholic, there are teachings that tell you that that you are a sinner from the moment you're born, and that in some cases, and not in mine, but in my own mind, I created these stories, but that you had to fear God, and that you were gonna, if you messed up too much, you were gonna go to hell, or you have all of these guilt trips flying at you, and so, and I was in a family that was pretty liberal. My mother was very conservatively raised in the Catholic Church, but my upbringing was a little bit more liberal. So I can't even imagine what would have happened to me mentally had it been more strict. But what I had to do is kind of pull it apart and say, okay, well, I am not a sinner. I am a good person who is doing her best in this lifetime, but I'm also not a saint and trying to measure up and be perfect, right? In this perfect light. And then have everything be a measuring stick against that perfection. Man, that causes all kinds of crazy business in our lives. So when we can come back to this, okay, I'm human. I am doing the best that I can. On the days that I don't do the best that I can, I need to course correct. On the days that I shoot my mouth off, and I do quite a bit, that's my nature, I have a big mouth. I make people laugh, or I probably make them cry, in some cases without even knowing, right? And so I have to be mindful of that this big personality sometimes needs to be a little bit more gentle, a little bit more discerning with how I share my truth. But not to the place where I think I have to change myself, or that it's not okay to have this big personality, or that it's something that that is imperfect. Does that make sense?
Oh, it completely does, because, and I love how you said you course correct, because for me it was when I backslide, instead of beating myself up, which is what my old tendency was many years ago, I say, I come into the awareness of that wasn't my best behavior or that wasn't my best moment. And the biggest pivot point for me was taking responsibility immediately for it. Like if it was a painful conversation or I hurt someone without knowing it, whatever it may be, or I dropped the ball on something, it was taking immediate responsibility for it, acknowledging it, and then forgiving myself. And here's the big thing, ladies, letting it go.
That's so true.
Because for years I would go, oh, I'm going to put this in that backpack that became a giant shipping container of regret and mistakes. I no longer carry that backpack. I process. I do what I need to clear the situation, forgive myself or forgive others, and then let it go. It's done. It's out of my energy field. And that was the greatest gift I gave to myself, Shann, is the processing of it and the letting go of what I described in the intro of what you do. It's about learning to listen to that voice that comes from within, get into the root of what is weighing you down. In this case, what we're talking about is, that moment where we backslide so that we can let go of it. And that's what allows us to be at our highest vibration. Because the more regret you carry, the more you don't forgive yourself and others for, indiscretions or whatever it may be. All we're doing is stopping our light from shining. And we can't fully show up as our true selves and serve others, including ourselves, our family, our business, if we're a business owner, if we have all that energy weighing us down. So I'm so glad that you talked about this, because I think it's, especially for women, it's a big thing of forgiving ourselves when we backslide. And we're going to be talking more about letting go and so much more when we come back from our commercial break with my special guest, Shann Vander Leek of TransformationGoddess.com. We'll be back shortly.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Ladies, your story has the power to transform lives. 4-time best-selling boutique publishing company, Inspired Living Publishing, is dedicated to sharing women's stories of hope, love, and transformation with the intention to inspire and empower their readers to believe in the power of possibility. Share your story in an upcoming print or Kindle project. Visit inspiredlivingpublishing.com today.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
We're here today with Transformation Goddess Shann Vander Leek, talking about forgiveness, the importance of letting go, and so much more to help you release what is weighing you down so you can take care of your precious heart, live your best life. And Shann, when we entered the conversation before, we were talking about the importance of letting go and not carrying our regrets, our self-condemnations, the negative chatter on into our lives, which I believe from my own experience that many women have a tendency to do. Have you discovered this in your work and in your own personal journey, that letting go is one of the keys to really healing our precious hearts?
It is at the top of the list for sure. We have this uncanny ability to attach ourselves to everything as human beings. And so that means every choice, every decision, every experience, good, bad, or otherwise, is coming along for the ride. And for a lot of us, the negative show up in a much stronger way than the positive. So I'll give you an example of that. If you have a blog, or if you're a writer, or you're out in the world doing any social media, and you have 99 people tell you that they've enjoyed what you just shared, and one be really not very nice and maybe make a comment that just makes your heart sink. Why is it that one comment can outweigh the 99? And that's part of our human nature. So letting that go, or as some people say, don't feed the trolls. If people want to come out of the woodwork and be negative, the best thing that we can do is, in that situation, is just delete it, let it go, and move on. Personally, if you're in a situation with someone who is not very nice and is bringing you down, then it's time to assess your relationship. So letting go is really such a powerful way to open yourselves up for so much more love, for light, for healing, for saying, you know what, I've carried that old story with me for far too long. And I love to say that your old story is not your only story. We get to start a new chapter. We get to say, okay, all of these choices, all of these experiences have shaped me and made me who I am today. And that's wonderful. But I don't need to go back and revisit everything all the time. I can let that go and continue to evolve. For example, my father just passed away recently, within the last, a little bit more than 30 days ago. And we had just reconciled after a number of years apart, estranged. And that choice that I made all those years ago was the right choice for me and my family. And I still believe that. But when he died, I started to revisit, put my pain body back on like a jacket, I'm going to put that, I know how that feels. I'm going to put that back on. And I started to go down this path of regurgitating, remembering, bringing up things that had been cleared, that had been forgiven. And thankfully, I was aware of it and could stop it and say, you've done a lot of work over the last 15 years to let this go. And so I invite you to let it go. And from that moment, yes, I'm grieving. Yes, of course I'm sad. I have moments where I have, wishing that things could have been another way, or all of the things that come up when you're grieving. But I'm not dragging myself through those old stories. I've let them go. And I can't even express to you how grateful I am that I learned how to do that, and that I've done the work and, been a part of the women's circles that I have, and have been witnessed, and have cut the cords and gone to the sweat lodges. And the wild thing is this past fall, I did a cord cutting ceremony around my father, having no humanly idea that he was going to pass, but obviously somewhere I knew. And so I was doing this healing work before being with you today, and it's made all the difference, because I've been able to let that old story go.
And it's such a powerful gift you gave yourself, but also your family, because as you know, we, as women especially, I believe we're the nurturers of the next generation. Our health, spiritual, emotional, and physical health, radiates out and affects our family. So when we take care of ourselves on every level, we're also taking care of our families. And I want to talk about something, because one of the greatest gifts that you share with your community is the work of the Sacred Heart teachings. And everything we're talking about today, I'm assuming, is what inspired you to create the Sacred Heart teachings. So first off, share with my audience exactly what the Sacred Heart teachings is.
This is a program that I created based on many, many years of healing work that incorporates supportive journaling prompts, beautiful guided meditations, beginning gentle yoga classes and postures, wonderful exercises. There's a forgiveness exercise that I continue to hear about being so supportive and helpful. It's a complete kit or experience where you can dive in where you want to. So you can work with the questions or exercises, or you can say, today I just want to do this grounding exercise, or today I want to do 3 simple yoga poses. I made it so easy for us to slide in and really love ourselves up. That's what it's about. And along the way, the support of what I've learned over the years and the teaching of the sacred heart healing cycle, where we start out and we're born and we're innocent and everything is perfect and beautiful and childlike, and then we grow up and things happen and we get hurt and the world comes in and we lose that innocence. And then from there, some of us go through a very painful cycle where we may have been abused, or something may have happened in our childhood that was just unfathomable. And it can be other things as well, being bullied, it just depends on the situation. But what happens is then we have this grief, and we carry this place in our hearts. It's, our heart is somewhat broken. Our heart is heavy. And then we start to armor ourselves to protect ourselves. And then from there, if we're lucky, we realize that we don't want to be there anymore. We want to learn to trust again. We want to learn to open again. We want to open our hearts. And we return to that innocence. So everything within this program, it moves you through that cycle, identifies that, yes, you might be in a place that's very painful, or you might have had something that you experienced that is still causing post-traumatic stress, but you can move through it. And the big piece of moving through it is to forgive yourself and others, and from a place of giving that gift to yourself, not from the place of saying, well, it's okay that this thing happened. It's okay that you broke my heart. It's okay that you hurt me. Or no, it was never okay. But that piece of forgiveness is really what helps us get to that next space, which again ties back into letting go.
So it sounds so beautiful. And before we go to our final commercial break, I want to know, how do we know when we're ready to dig in and heal our wounded hearts?
You're ready when you want to allow people to come closer, when you want to trust again, when you want to make yourself available for unconditional love, and when you want to receive those hugs and share your truth without the fear of being judged. All of those things come into play. When you're feeling like that, when you know there's something more, when you want to release that armor, boy, oh boy, I hope you move forward and go for it, because it will change everything. And I'm living proof. It really will.
We'll be back, everyone, to continue this sacred conversation with Shann Vander Leek of transformationgoddess.com. And we're going to come back and we'll be talking about what you can do right now to start healing your past.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
The truth is, you can't change the world if you're broke. I know. I've tried. Isn't it time you turned your life's calling into a profitable, freedom-based business? I'm Michelle Barr. Join me every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern for Sacred Success.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
When we left off before the commercial break, we were talking about how you know when it's time to really dig in and heal your wounded heart. And Shann, I want to talk about what we can do right now, and our listeners can do right now to start healing their past.
There are a number of a number of different exercises and things that you can do, but I would start by identifying what it is in your past that you're struggling with. Usually we know it top of mind, but to be able to perhaps journal about it or write about it, or if you feel like that's too much, to forgive yourself for whatever that is, and to forgive whomever, if there's somebody else involved, and to be in that place of, okay, I don't want to feel like a victim anymore. I don't want to feel like I'm under a wet blanket anymore. So here is what I'm going to do. I'm going to declare that I deserve to heal this part of me, that I can move beyond this piece, that other people have. So if other people can do it, I can too. I am not alone in this. When you start to realize that you're not alone in this, when you start to realize that that old story keeps, it's looping and looping and looping and bringing you down, you can begin to really work with it. You can perhaps have a conversation with a trusted friend or counselor. You can do journaling work where, depending on, everybody's different. So you might want to speak to your higher self and ask questions about, what do I need right now to move past this pain, and let it flow on the pages. It all depends on you and your personality style and what you're ready for. And the beautiful thing is, as soon as you make the choice, as soon as you know, boy, I know there's something better, that's the beginning of the healing process right there, when you become aware of it. And then you can take those steps. So it's, awareness, action, transformation. We become aware of the situation. We start to take action in whatever way we can that's supportive of ourselves. And then before you know it, we're transforming, and we're starting to come from a place of wisdom and understanding that, okay, I am so much more than this incident. I am so much more than this anger. I am so much more when I let this go and allow myself to really blossom.
Mm. And I know one of the tools, well, a few of the tools that you use for your own journey, but also with your clients, and that are included in the Sacred Heart teachings, is yoga and guided meditation, which you really believe helps fuel our personal transformation. So let's talk a little bit about that as we, come towards the end of our conversation, because I think those are powerful tools for women to know about.
They sure are. And we'll start with the guided meditation part. That, for me, being a voice talent and having several albums on iTunes now that are guided meditations or guided relaxations, they were really a key to my healing, because I could not quiet my mind by myself for a long time. But what I could do is lay down, put a headset on, and listen to somebody guide me through a grounding exercise, or guide me through a healing guided meditation, those kinds of things that are just so beautiful. And you can carve out anywhere from 10 minutes to 30 minutes, depending on how much time you have, and give yourself that gift. And so within the Sacred Heart teachings, I created several of those opportunities in all different lengths. And so that it just brings this sense of peace, and to be able to exhale and to just rest and be led is a beautiful thing. The yoga piece is instrumental in that I think a lot of us who haven't practiced yoga before close our eyes and see some, beautiful yogini in her little outfit and her yoga mat, skipping off to yoga. and yes, she does exist, but yoga is for everyone, for all walks of life, for all body sizes. It doesn't matter if you have the right clothing or the right mat or the right, what it matters, what it's about is union of mind, body, and soul, of finding a place that you're comfortable with, and taking a class and allowing yourself to really exhale and inhale and relax on that mat and learn how to get back into your body. So yoga for me changed everything, Linda. When I started practicing yoga, I was at the height of my corporate career, and I was a stress ball, and I started to learn to breathe again. I started to enjoy Shavasana, the beginning and ending portion of the classes that I was taking, where you just lay on the floor and breathe and be mindful of how your body feels before actually doing any of the asanas. So I just can't express what happened for me. In that process, I started to do a lot of clearing and a lot of healing, and my inner truth came through. My voice came through. That chakra for me was blocked, and I didn't know it. I hadn't. All of a sudden, my truth was like, I got to get out of this job. I've got to make it change. There are things that have to happen, and I just knew. And I know that yoga had a big part in that. And so within the Sacred Heart teachings are very, very simple beginning yoga postures to help you relax, to help you sleep, and then a class for beginners that should just kind of move you through the postures in a very supportive and loving way. Yoga is amazing. Guided meditations are so supportive. And then, of course, the journaling exercises and supportive practices and exercises are just, it works. You have to dive deep, but it works.
And that's what I love about the Sacred Heart teachings, is that it brings all of who we are into the healing process, body, mind, and spirit. And I know that you're so passionate about helping women transform their lives. And I want to, as our conversation comes to an end, first I want to invite our listeners to learn more about the sacred work that you are doing in the world through transformationgoddess.com, all your offerings, and where they can also stop by and learn more about the Sacred Heart teachings. And Shann, is there, in the last few moments, a piece of wisdom or insights that you would like to leave our listeners with?
I would like to invite you to love yourself unconditionally, to look in the mirror and know that you are perfect just as you are, and that you deserve to take the next steps towards your emotional, physical, and mental healing.
And I invite you to do so by stopping by Shann's gorgeous website, transformationgoddess.com. Have fun. Read all about the sacred offerings that she has, the beautiful community that she's built. And Shann, I want to thank you for being here, for showing up as the amazing woman that you are, and for sharing yourself and your big heart with us so openly.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Linda. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me for Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy. Listen in next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time for another sacred conversation with visionary women who are here to share their feminine wisdom to support you in living your best life. Until then, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living. Are you guarding your heart with layers of protective armor? Do you feel held hostage by the experiences of your past and overrun by demons of self-doubt and self-judgment? Do you want to trade in guilt and shame for ease, grace, and self-acceptance? Best-selling author, producer, and transformation goddess Shann Vander Leek created the Sacred Heart teachings and the Sacred Heart healing cycle with supportive and essential exercises, meditations, and gentle yoga for your mind, body, and soul. Embark upon a heart-centered journey and begin the inner work you need to reprogram your critical mind, heal your past, and experience more joy. Claim access to the Sacred Heart Healing Cycle now at sacredheartteachings.com. Shann can help you learn how to get to the root of what is weighing you down so you can let go of what no longer serves you and begin to heal your precious heart. Visit sacredheartteachings.com today